Smash Ultimate is dead. At least compared to when it was at the peak during the DLC era. It's still going strong with plenty of people playing online and making content, but let's be real. We have the finished product. There aren't going to be any more updates. No more patches with added buffs or nerfs, and for that matter, we're pretty much on the final stretch of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle anyway. Unfortunately though, I'm still pretty much obsessed with this franchise, so rather than moving on to farming simulators, I'd rather speculate about what the next Smash game will look like. Speaking of which, let's talk about the characters, since, you know, the characters are probably the biggest reason we pick up the game in the first place. Personally, I have no idea what the future of the series is going to look like, but Sakurai himself made reference to the fact that we're probably never going to see as many characters in future installments as we saw in Smash Ultimate. To be honest, I'm not even sure if future installments will have any third-party characters. So for the sake of staying realistic, and also just so we have a list that's different from the regular Crash Bandicoot and Ryu Hayabusa requests, I'm going to be sticking just to first-party characters. And when it comes to Nintendo, there are a lot of options. So let's get started. First, we've got Isaac from Golden Sun. He's highly requested, comes from a great game, and has a lot of potential in terms of a moveset. He can use both a sword and magic, which already puts him in the ranks with some of the most fun characters on the roster, but also has a unique property that stems from his synergy skills. Yeah, I know he's an anime sword fighter, but I have a few of those on my list, like this next one. Noah from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Personally, I give my total and complete trust to the Smash development team when it comes to designing Xenoblade characters. Shulk and Pyra are two of my absolute favorite characters in the game, and when I was playing Xenoblade 3, all I could think about was how much I wanted Noah in Smash. Of course, he'd carry Lucky 7, which makes him another sword character, but he can also use arts from the other Kavesi characters in his game, specifically Lance, Uni, and Ethel. Speaking of which, Noah isn't the only Xenoblade 3 character I want on the roster. Even though Noah would be the obvious choice, I think it would feel pretty empty if we didn't also add Mio. Her Zephyr class has a completely different kind of gameplay to Noah, making her more similar to a heavy than a sword fighter. She would use the arts from the Agnian characters in her game, particularly Senna, Taion, and Miyabi. Personally, I think that both Noah and Mio aren't just deserving of spots on the next Smash roster. To me, they're no-brainers, and whenever the next Smash game comes out, I hope to see them join the battle. But okay, I think I've talked about sword characters enough for the time being though, so let's move on to some Pokemon characters I'd like to see in the next Smash game. Of course, Smash is no stranger to adding Pokemon from previous generations, as we saw with Mewtwo in Melee and Pokemon Trainer in Brawl. And to be honest, I don't think that either Scarlet and Violet or Sword and Shield added any characters that deserve to join the roster. Honestly, with as much fun as I have with Incineroar, I'm not even sure he deserved a spot. So I decided to go back to some previous generations where the Pokemon were a little more interesting. First we have Zoroark, which I believe should have been the obvious gen rep for instead of Lucario. Zoroark has the Illusion ability, which allows him to take the image of his opponent. I have no idea if that would translate well, but it is an option. He also has a move pool with tons of options like Night Slash, Night Daze, Dark Pulse, and Payback. He could play similar to Wolf with his claws and projectiles, but rather than using a reflector, Payback would act as a counter which doubles the damage dealt to him. Of course, these are just some options for gameplay, but it would be amazing to see Zoroark added to the roster. And while I'm thinking about Pokemon, I'd also like to see Hawlucha join the battle too. I think that besides Greninja, Hawlucha is pretty much the most recognizable and iconic character from the Kalos region, and he'd have lots of options that would make him a great brawler, especially if we don't get the Street Fighter reps back in the next game. Possible moves include Wing Attack, Acrobatics, High Jump Kick, and of course, Flying Press. Like I said before, I don't know exactly how Hawlucha would play, but I think this Pokemon deserves a spot over any of the choices from Generation 7, 8, or 9. Next, let's bring in the most iconic duo of the past several years, Callie and Marie. Inkling was, in my opinion, the best inclusion to the Smash Ultimate base roster, and with the absolute success that Splatoon has had since then, I see no reason not to include the Squid Sisters. They could use different weapons from the Splatoon series that currently aren't used by Inkling, like the Sploosh-O-Matic, Splat Charger, Brella, and Dualis. I'd imagine they'd be just different skins of each other like Steve and Alex, but I can't imagine why these two wouldn't be on the next Smash roster. Speaking of iconic Nintendo games, how about we finally add another Zelda rep? I know that the series basically just uses the same 3 characters in every single game, but you know who we haven't used yet? Skull Kid! Majora's Mask is the only Zelda game I can think of where Ganon isn't the main antagonist, and Skull Kid has managed to stay in our minds since the N64 era. The mask itself gives Skull Kid plenty of moveset possibilities, but I'm sure the designers would also be able to pull out some details from the game's lore to flesh him out a little bit. And after that, we have Springman. Look, I know that a lot of people aren't a fan of ARMS and don't particularly like Min Min, but I think the playstyle Min Min has is too good to be looked over, and I'd really like to see what they do differently with Springman. If you are an ARMS fan though, hit that like button. Now, how about Viridi from Kid Icarus Uprising? Yeah, I know the game is already pretty overrepresented on the roster, but so is Fire Emblem Awakening, so it's fine. I think what makes her interesting is that she has a staff, but she wouldn't necessarily fight like a sword character, a trait shared by another Kid Icarus character, Palutena. She's also pretty short, which could make her an absolute menace if the developers gave her a good moveset. Plus, I just like her design and personality. I don't think many people would particularly complain if she got in. Moving on, let's add Akira Howard from Astral Chain. Just the idea of adding legions as a mechanic would be freaking phenomenal, but I'm not holding my breath. Akira also has a baton and guns that they can use, which possibly could fill the gap left if Joker doesn't appear on the next game's roster. Add the fact that Astral Chain is still one of the top-selling Switch games, and you have a decent argument on why they should be added. Another series which sold well but tends to go under the radar is Style Savvy. Look, I'm not ignorant to the fact that the demographics of Smash and Style Savvy are practically polar opposites, but then again, so are the demographics for Smash and Wii Fit. I'm just a fashion junkie who would give his left kidney to see the Savvy stylist added to Smash. If you're not the type who likes cute girly characters though, then maybe you prefer someone dark and gritty. For you guys, I'd like to add Alucard from the Castlevania series. Dracula is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, and just the fact that he's in Smash at all makes me happier than you'll ever know. Still, adding Alucard, Dracula's son, would be such a one-up for the series. We've seen a possible playstyle from Super Castlevania 4, and since we can't add Dracula's daughter for obvious reasons, I see no reason why he wouldn't be perfect for the next Smash game. Now, hopefully I've made some of you happy with my picks so far, because now it's time for characters that I want, which is more Fire Emblem characters. No, I'm not being facetious, the Fire Emblems are my favorite characters on the roster by far, and there are some new additions I'd like to see in the next game. First off is Shez from Three Hopes. Seeing as how this is a Warrior's original character, he already comes with plenty of options for his moveset, especially when it comes to combo potential. He also has a great design with the possible female alt like we see with Robin, Corrin, and Byleth. Also, I know how this is going to sound, but just hear me out. Aliar from Fire Emblem Engage. Yeah, I know that the game hasn't come out yet, but we've seen that he has a couple battle gimmicks which could potentially translate really well into Smash gameplay. I mean, I'll trade Chrom for him. Is that a fair trade? I'm just really happy with how the Fire Emblem roster has turned out so far, and I give my full trust to the development team that they'll make both of these characters a lot of fun to play. Alright, is there anyone else I'm forgetting? What other first-party character could people possibly want to see in Smash Bros? Yeah, I tried thinking of a creative bit to keep the tension going, but it's Waluigi. Thanks so much for watching! I mean, seriously, I'm legitimately grateful for you watching this video. Just knowing that I've been able to make content that people watch to the end is all the reward I could need. If you want to see more of my content though, maybe you should subscribe. That way, when I come out with a new video, you might see it get recommended the next time you're on the toilet. But yeah, I think that's about it for me. Have a good day, everybody!